Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology and also about how it affects how the planets affect your lives and the world around us. The first thing I would like to say is I have a correction to make to last week's broadcast, and that is if we use so this is only going to be of interest, really speaking to astrologers or people who are just trying to see if I can get less white out of the picture, or people who are interested in these sort of things. There are two ways of measuring the lunar nodes, Rahu and Ketu, in astrology. One is using what's called a mean node, which is an average motion, and what another which is called a true node, which was developed by a fellow named, I believe, Michael Erlewine in the 1960s. And that allows for a more precise measurement of where the nodes are in space. So last week, I didn't realize my default settings were set to mean node. So I was getting very giddy about, or very excited about um, uh, Rahu and Ketu moving into Pisces and Virgo. And while I think this is true, I have noticed the mean node measures. When the mean node measurements take effect, I've noticed personally an emotional lift, but there's still some residual um, influence left for the true nodes. So essentially, right now the nodes are basically between signs. They're between um, Aries and Pisces and Ketu and Libra and Virgo and Libra, excuse me. So this shouldn't really affect dramatically what I said last week. I think right now the nodes are at within 1 degree of a sign. Planets or astrological entities are at their lowest strength at 1 degree uh, of a line. So I think this is one of the things that's basically influencing people. So people are sort of like stuck between wanting to effectuate change and aggressively aggressively affecting change. So you will see a shift in attitudes as to what people believe in, as to what people um, access for their belief systems over the next few months. The actual true node shifts occurs in around November 28th. The mean node shift occurred around November 1st. So this is a month of transition. Okay, November's been a month of transition. Also, Venus is close to conjunction with K2, so expect relationship life to be a bit more challenging over the next few weeks. So that's just in general. Before I go into that, so I just wanted to apologize if I misled any of you. I don't think I really did, not in essence. But so next weekend, I will be able to clearly and with a good conscience say, you know what, K2's really out of Libra, and Rahu's really out of Aries. You know, by both measurements. By one measurement, one they both already are. by another measurement, they're still lingering, but it's like 17 minutes of the sign, which is really an infinitesimal measurement. Um, by by next weekend, Venus will have cleared Virgo, and I think we'll all breathe a sigh of relief when that happens. So, just to give you some background about myself, that was a really long introduction before I told you anything about me. My name is Gary Gomes. I've been a Vedic astrologer for 30 years. You can check out my page on Facebook. You can check out my page on. I am working up to the point where I'm actually going to start putting links here. Excuse me, so you can see my vast record of accomplishments. But for the time being, just take it from me. I've been an astrologer for a long time, uh, and um, and let me just also I, I do readings. I do classes. I've been teaching since 1996. I've been doing readings since 1990. And so I think, actually since before 1996. But I mark that as my official start. And I took to it very quickly. And I'm just trying to think of a good way to explain myself. Um, but if you want to contact me, I can be contacted at 508 525 0001. My email address is garygomesg@gmail.com. My phone number is, you can text me at my phone or call me directly. So uh, so I'm relatively easy to contact. One of the worst ways to contact me is through Messenger. Okay, so I do have Facebook pages and all that other stuff, but but the um, Messenger I don't check all that often. So if you try to contact me through Messenger, it's much safer to use 508 525 0001. I'm also on WhatsApp. So if you have that application, I'm also, I believe, on Signal. You know, I'm on a variety of sites. I'm on Instagram. I'm on X, formerly Twitter. So I'm on most of the major media sites. I just joined Reddit, but you might have trouble finding me. But I just posted my first YouTube video on Reddit. And so again, like I said, I'm not really tough to contact. It's just um, timing. If you contact me through, let's say, something like Messenger, Facebook Messenger, it's sometimes I'll catch up on those messages like a week later. So just if you want to talk to me soon, it's better to use my phone number. Again, that's 508 525 0001. 508 525 0001. All right, so let's go on to what's happening in the chart right now. And we've seen a lot of, okay, so I'm going to try this a couple more times because we always have some kind of trouble sharing screens. By the way, the new computer is almost all set up. I just have to get the microphone settings in shape, and we should be able to use the new computer. Um, I'm optimistically by next week. I always have some problems in setting up a new computer, and I came to these. I didn't grow up with these. I came to these, and I'm also relatively um, Microsoft is particularly, um, I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it. For those of you uh, not used to Microsoft updates and things like that, it's really, well, I won't blame Microsoft. It was the way that I put things together that I blame. Okay, so 5 more days. So you see that Venus down in the, so let's go through the chart. So this is Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra. You can see K2 is at 0 degrees, 17 minutes. Venus is at 25 degrees, 6 minutes of Virgo. Every Venus moves basically 1 degree pretty much every day. So by this time next week, Venus should be in Libra, which should be good. Around the middle of the week, there'll probably be some relationship arguments, but again, they'll pass. Actually, interestingly enough, some unexpected relationship opportunities, some unexpected business and relationship opportunities will probably perk up this week for most people. Um, so you'll hear from people you haven't heard from for a long time, or you'll hear from unexpected sources. Oh, by the way, I just wanted, this is Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, our old friend Aquarius, and back to Pisces. I did want to say, if you want to tune in over the next couple of weeks, I should be having interviews with Gary O'Toole, who wrote a really nice, excellent book on Vedic astrology called Dasha Vidya. It's really comprehensive, very thick, very easy to understand, and he did a great job. And I should also have an issue upcoming with um, Jean Karazian from Lebanon, and also with um, Alan Anand from Canada. Gary's from Ireland. So this is so I'm really happy to have such a multinational audience and a series of multinational contacts. Just to and these aren't people who are these aren't people who are students of mine, although John did study with me briefly back around 2006, 2007. I gave him some hints on charts. But I like the idea of this form of astrology spreading worldwide, and I'm certainly not the only one who's done it. There are many other people who have done it. But I think this is really a neat form of astrology, and a lot of people will really get a lot from it. So let's talk about world events just quickly, because I spent a lot of time like backtracking and explaining myself. So we have Moon up here at heading towards Taurus, heading towards its exaltation sign. Jupiter's in Aries, is still retrograde, so there is still what I would call reversals, maybe a little bit of over optimism about the way things are going to turn out. Uh, and that's one thing I've noticed about Jupiter retrograde. People tend to over promise, they tend to um, over imagine, they tend to overstate uh, their abilities. I mean, the good thing about it is if Jupiter is retrograde, you have a chance to correct mistakes several times. So that's always a good thing. Saturn's aspecting Jupiter, so we also don't realize how stupid we are at certain points in this transit. That's not meant as a put down to anybody, with Saturn aspecting Jupiter, Rahu, and the Moon is usually a destructive combination. Saturn destroys what it looks at, so we have a lot of people essentially tending to give advice which is really destructive advice. Um, this is sort of where I'm seeing a lot of the ethical issues coming up about free speech and international affairs popping up. Uh, the one thing I did want to talk about was we have changes in power in Argentina and surprisingly enough, the Netherlands. Okay, so the Netherlands always had this reputation of being a very liberal country, and it is, but uh, they elected a conservative, or there's a conservative head of state now. And we'll see how that pans out. Italy just elected a conservative head of state. Um, and Argentina, I can understand why this happened in Argentina because Argentina is an economic um, basket case. It's got like 100% inflation year after year. It's really in very dire straits economically. Now, whether or not this new fellow's policies will change that remains to be seen. But whenever you have a situation like that, people do change leaders. The other thing is, and the Netherlands is more of a connection with there are economic issues, but they're tied to refugees, they're tied to various trials that Europe is being put through right now. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this. I don't think it's going to be a sweep, an overall sweep, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this over the next year. And as I said in the presidential race, I don't want to start making predictions about who's going to win or who's going to be nominated or who's going to uh, be indicted or who's going to go to jail or who's going to. I I don't want to touch that really until probably um, next April when Jupiter's less afflicted than it is right now. So, and again, we have this Sun Mercury Mars conjunction, and we have a lot of people panicking about what's going to happen if a certain person gets elected or another person gets elected. And again, as I've told you many times before, the media is quite, especially in the United States, but this is true, I think, universally. Um, the media is quite capable of lying to you. Number one, they work from sources. Number two, most media outlets are either politically or commercially controlled. And number three, they have really zero incentive to tell you the whole truth. Okay. It's not really good for their positions. It's not good for their sponsors. It's not good for the governments. And while we don't have outright governmental seizure of media, as has happened in certain countries like China and Turkey, the West has shown increasingly disturbing the West, and by that I mean Europe, the United States, Canada, you know, uh, the countries which were deemed to be essentially liberal bastions of freedom and freedom of speech are showing increasing signs of leaning towards governmental or commercial censorship. So, and I think one of the things that I'm not worried about a certain perspective being um, targeted. That's really not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about this is the camel's nose, so once the camel's nose goes inside the tent, the rest can follow. So it's kind of a threat to every political persuasion. So let's say you get somebody who's um, out of favor with the current administration, then you can get all sorts of levers to use against that particular individual, or they're out of step with uh, corporate priorities, let's say. So I it's something that's really it's really a nonpartisan issue. It's really something which is more of an issue like if you take away freedoms here, you can take away freedoms there. And having grown up in the 60s, um, I I saw I saw that happen to the left. Okay. Um, so it isn't just one side versus the other, you know. So we're the good guys. We don't mind if you censor them. You know, they're bad people. They're not good. If they can censor them, they can censor you too, and they can shut you up pretty effectively. So that's just a little bit of preachiness. Saturn's aspecting Mercury, Mars, Sun. So you're seeing a lot of panic right now. And I would also say a very strong punishment mode happening. So Saturn's aspecting Jupiter, Saturn's aspecting Mercury, Mars, and Sun. So I think number one, that tends to give problems to existing governments. Number two, uh, I think you also see um, media being manipulated very, in some cases, rather clumsily. Uh, and I've seen some of the arguments uh, against against this particular position, and the arguments always come from um, sources which are really dubious. So, um, and when I say dubious, they're essentially people who put out the first set uh, of misrepresentations to begin with. And I'm not talking about so so essentially I'm in favor of all the information that we can handle being released and letting people decide what's true and what's not. Um, so so essentially that's where I come from. And this Saturn Mars aspect right now, also a lot of the things you're seeing on college campuses, like um, or the demonstrations, have to do with Rahu and Jupiter. So essentially, this is um, Rahu likes to disrupt campuses. Rahu likes to disrupt communications. The trap, the accident, they don't know what it is quite in Canada, between Canada and Niagara Falls. I've been fascinated by that because they don't want to call it a terrorist attack, but they still don't know what caused it. And I'm not saying it is a terrorist attack. It's just really, really bizarre. It's a really, really bizarre incident. And given the fact that it's happened at a time of world tensions being high, uh, is making people very, very uh, frightened about it. So I think one of the things, now again, we could explain this actually quite simply by the Sun Mars conjunction, you know, just in terms of travel and also K2 being near the borders. If you use mean or um, true note, you know, K2 being near the borders of a sign. And K2 is in Chitra nakshatra, which is ruled by Mars. Okay, so K2 is in this kind of accident-prone nakshatra. It's an accident planet, and so again, the predictions about government upsets look like they're going to continue throughout the next year and a half. So yeah, certainly um, through April, and government protests may simmer down a little bit in December, but I think the lack of faith in government is going to continue for a while for at least a couple of more years. And I also think media is a perpetual problem in the United States. The United States chart has a Mercury Rahu conjunction, so it's more concerned with the big story than with truthfulness. And and again, I understand it's a commercial idiom, it's a commercial medium, and they want broadcasts to they want to gather viewers. But I I'm also just very, very leery about the ways that that people in general have been misled for God since I've been alive. Okay. And even before that. So, on a more optimistic note, the moon Jupiter, the Rahu Jupiter conjunction, Jupiter moving into Pisces, will make us question certain dogmatic beliefs. So that's a good thing. K2 moving into Virgo will make us more careful about health. Okay, so there could be some additional health concerns, but this is more individual. K2 moving into Sagittarius when the pandemic struck was actually both a disruptive element because it was there's a certain point in Sagittarius which is very, very destructive. Excuse me. And so essentially the first 13 degrees of Sagittarius are considered extremely, it's like a reconfiguration of society. And when K2 is in that particular frame in 2020, along with Saturn, it's sort of like it was sort of a really depressive element. The next node and Saturn conjunction will happen in around 2020, late 2024, early 2025. And that's when Rahu and Saturn conjoin in Aquarius. A lot of technological innovation, a lot of advancement, but also an increasingly conservative mindset. Okay, so this is one of the fascinating things. So you'll see this will be disruptive um, to the United States as well, and to the world as well, because you'll see a lot of changes in economies. Okay, so I think I think one of the things um, so this will be the big Republican swing. This will be the big conservative swing internationally. The really big conservative swing around late 2024. I would say the early 2025. Okay. And if we have, um, so this is a few months off. In the immediate future, we have this is when Venus goes into this particular sign will have, we're not going to have a Kala Sarpa Yoga or not a Kala Sarpa Yoga of any real impact. Um, and I think there will be additional diseases, but they'll be isolated or they'll be uh, more connected with uh, things like stomach flus or those kinds of things. Because the sixth house will be the sixth house, the natural sixth house of the zodiac will be um, affected, and I would see a lot of little diseases as opposed to one big pandemic. All right, so let's go over here. So again, don't be panicking. Don't be um, Don't be weirded out. It's not the end of the world. We're nowhere near it. All right, so let's go on to the individual signs, and then we'll go on to. So I'll try to cover these rather quickly today. Moon and Jupiter are in the first house along with Rahu, so that gives this sign a lot of ambition, a lot of impatience, a lot of desire to get going, to move. Still some relationship problems with the Venus K2 conjunction down here. Technically, I would view it as a conjunction, so this will be kind of it'll be borderline selflessness, but also kind of critical about relationship partners. Um, the Lord of the first house is in the eighth. There's a lot of focus on things that are owed you, that people had told you were coming to you, and that and you're still waiting for from either your boss or the government. You'll get those within about 3 weeks. And Saturn is in the 11th house, so slow gains, but certainly gains will come. Okay. Again, inflationary pressure is not really going to let up, I don't think, for another couple of years in the United States. And I also think the real estate market will slow a bit because of the Saturn Mars aspect, but not really slow for about another 4 to 5 months. Okay, maybe mid 2024. The other thing is, so let's see now. Taurus has, I'm sorry, let's go on to Taurus. Taurus has the Lord of the first and the fifth, which is generally a good combination. It does make the sign a little bit greedy or ambitious. It wants some fame or some recognition. Uh, some problems with hidden enemies, though, and these could be anything from illnesses to people saying things behind your back. Relationship life is a little bit tough. There's a lot of focus on relationship life and a lot of focus on family life with this combination. I have an itch in my eye. Sorry about that. Don't read that as body language. That's just an itch. And and let's and Saturn's in the 10th house. Again, a lot of hard work, but a lot of the money goes on what I would call frivolous or unusual desires. That'll shift a little bit next week. Gemini has Rahu, Moon, and Jupiter in the 11th house. I want to focus on that first. Basically, the Rahu, Moon, Jupiter conjunction in the 11th house give friends who are kind of coming out, a lot of the obsession you've been feeling over the past few months will start to fade a little bit. The same is true of Cancer. I'll explain that when I get to Cancer. And it's sort of like the last week of like trying to get rid of like some kind of desire or some kind of ambition that you just can't control. And especially it's been a trying period of time for people in relationships with this rising sign. So a lot of relationship activity will calm down. You'll have more peace of mind. You'll have more, you'll be writing a lot, and you'll also be making a lot of public appearances. For this sign, Venus is in the 4th house. So again, unhappy for about a week. Then you start to spring back. But again, final break off around midweek with unfruitful relationships. Mars, Mercury, Sun are in the 6th house. So again, there's a lot of anger that's been building up for the sign over the past few weeks. That'll disperse itself within about, within about 2 weeks. And there'll be more focus on relationship life, but also more independence. Saturn's in the 9th. That's a good combination for hard work and persistence. So there will be some financial gains, but again, slow. For Cancer, Cancer has Saturn as Lord of the 7th and the 8th house. So again, that does mean relationship partners who you once thought were loyal have essentially uh, become nasty or difficult um, and isolated. The other thing is we have Venus in the third, so there's a certain unwillingness to let go of futile endeavors. Ketu's in the fourth house, so there's some concern about parents, and parents may want to leave or go away, or family may seem a little distant or wrapped up in themselves. Career looks good for Cancer this month. Fifth house has Sun, Mercury, and Mars, and there will be fights or arguments with children, maybe even, but a lot of creative activity. Saturn's in the eighth, a lot of investigation, a lot of cleansing of unwanted behavior. And we have that Rahu Moon Jupiter conjunction. Again, very good for career, notoriety, and recognition. For Leo, Leo has Venus in the second house, good for bringing in money, but a little bit of frustration because people will say they want to do things and they won't follow through, but that'll be clear by the end of the week. K2 is in the third house, so a lot of courage for this sign, a lot of belief in unusual um, systems, a lot of unorthodoxy for this sign right now. The king is not in favor right now, okay? Um, and people want to change kings, okay? So people will not take you as seriously as they normally would. Uh, and that'll make you angry. It'll make you reassert your authority, but you'll be blocked by Saturn. So relationship partners in particular will seem to be a little bit difficult or a little bit difficult to get along with. Saturn's aspecting Jupiter. Uh, when we have this kind of a combination, it does give luck, but it slows the luck down. Venus has Lord of the 10th house. Again, career life is a little bit limited or a little bit closed in, but it'll improve within about 2 weeks. For Virgo, Virgo has Venus in the first house. This is actually a good combination for Virgo rising, even though Venus is weak in this sign, because um, it creates what's called a wealth producing combination. It's the Lord of the second house and the ninth in the first house, so it can produce unexpected, although smaller than desired streams of income. Venus is in Chitra, so there'll be a lot of impatience about getting that money in. The Lord of Chitra is in the third house, so there's a strong desire to push these things to happen. Don't push, they'll come within about a week. Especially in terms of property matters, this is true regarding Leo too. Property matters will resolve in about a week. And Jupiter's in the fourth is a fourth house lord, is in the eighth house. So this indicates some unseen problems at home, some need to repair some aspects of home, some chronic dissatisfaction showing up. For Saturn, for the fifth house of children, children will seem to be a little bit difficult. Creativity will come with a lot of work, okay? So this is not a bad time for Virgo. There will be a tendency to lie a little bit career-wise and a tendency to really try to push your own agenda. For Libra, Libra has K2 in the first house. Lord of Libra is in the 12th house. So it gives a heavy expenditure pattern for this sign, which again will reverse itself towards the end of next week. And K2 in the 12th, there'll be expenses connected with repairs and fixing things that are wrong with. Um, that you enjoy or that you like, or maybe even connected with your own health. Okay, so K2 in the first house for this sign has been kind of an energetic low point. Uh, and I think one of the things that I've noticed is it's also kind of lackadaisical about trade. So we're seeing certain improvements happening trade-wise. The Jupiter-Moon conjunction along with Rahu does give trade overall, the potential for trade for the sign overall good, make it good, but it won't free things up really until early next month in December. And you see Mercury, Mars, and Sun in the second house. Again, this is another Dana Yoga or wealth producing combination. So this actually produces um, income from afar, income from friends, and income from one's property. Saturn's in the fifth house, a lot of determination to investigate creative things from old systems or from things you'd given up years ago. Old knowledge, but also innovative knowledge. So there's a lot of interest in what I would call gadgetry or new technologies. Moon and Jupiter with Rahu, relationship partners will seem to be a little bit moody, but overall optimistic. So this is not a bad combination. Rahu, like I said, will change signs within a couple of days, and you'll feel a little bit more relief. There'll be less um, animosity with relationship partners. So overall, good for career, good for money for this sign. Relationship life, personal health, personal ambition, not so terrific. Psychic ability strong though with this combination. From Scorpio, we have Mars, Mercury, and Sun in the first house. That gives a lot of focus on career, a lot of focus on um, self and exercise, and also a lot of focus on health overall. Okay. So basically, and also some focus on gains because the Lord of the 11th is in the first house. So this is another wealth producing combination in the chart. And Jupiter sits in the second house. It goes into the sixth house from the sign, and that indicates wealth through efforts, through hard work. Um, Overall, this is not a bad month or not a bad week for Scorpio. Relationship tensions, especially about money and about friendships, will tend to lessen towards the end of the week, but they'll be present really through until around December 1st or 2nd. Um, the other thing is we have, um, so again, beware of possible arguments with relationship partners and friends. Sagittarius has um, the Lord of the first house and the fifth. So the world of politics has been kind of screwed up for this sign. Again, something's in my eye. And I think with this combination, Rahu will take a lot of the intrigue out of politics over the next few weeks. I think there'll be a lot more clarity about what we want from politicians or what we want from our leaders. And that'll probably be more truthfulness or honesty. Um, we're not going to get it right away, but that's what we want. And I think the other thing is there'll be sort of like a cloud lifted over what I would call a lot of the propaganda that's been laid on both sides of the table. Uh, so Rahu moves into the fourth house, but this will also lead to domestic strife for this sign. So just be a little careful about home life and dissatisfaction with career and feeling of pointlessness in career. Saturn, as Lord of the second, goes into the third, so there's this strong ambition for wealth uh, and change. And Kate, who's in the 11th, again, don't trust your friends. Uh, and Mercury and Mars and Sun are in the 12th house. So again, be careful of expenditures. For Capricorn, Capricorn's Lord is Saturn. It's in the second house. That's not really bad, but basically, um, it gives a lot of emphasis on wealth, financial growth. Rahu and Moon are in the uh, fourth house, and that gives some domestic unrest, although there'll be a way to resolve it over the next couple of weeks. And Venus is in the ninth house, so it's well placed for Capricorn. So actually, not a bad time for the sign to make money. Uh, Even better in about a week. Um, this particular sign actually is one of the better placed signs right now, or better position signs right now. I said this last week. So Capricorn should do okay. This is January 15th to December 15th. For Aquarius, we have um, Saturn's in the first house. Um, a lot of focus on study, a lot of focus on work. It seems like work is relentless for the sign. Saturn's aspecting the moon, so at least from this combination, some of the work will start to pay off within about a week's time. And Venus, the Lord of the ninth, is in the eighth, so a lot of luck will come from hidden resources. K2's in the ninth. It sort of blocks recognition for the sign to a certain extent, but work is very hard, and there'll be a lot of arguments about work and a lot of delays at work. So just be patient. That'll go away within about a week. Relationship life will be okay, but again, a lot of potential for arguments. Finally, Pisces. Pisces has Jupiter in the second house, along its Lord is in the second house, along with the Moon, Rahu, and Jupiter. Um, and that tends to give an overemphasis on money. Venus is in the seventh house, so it'll give potential for relationship partners, but I wouldn't trust them. I would really wait for a couple of months before I got involved in a relationship, to be honest with you. And K2's in the eighth, so there's a lot of hidden problems coming up connected with relationship partners. Mars, Sun, and Mercury are in the ninth house, and um, Jupiter, Lord of the first, is in the second. I'm sorry, Lord of the 10th is in the second house, so there should be some financial gains, but again, far too many expenditures. By the way, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment. I will certainly answer questions, and as soon as I get them, I try to answer them. And any astrologer who is interested in coming on the show, please let me know. I'll be happy to host you. Okay, so let me go to the map and see where we expect problems. I'm probably going to make this a little shorter than I normally do. Time space change. Okay, let's push this up. Get it to expand. Great. So it worked. All right. So some economic problems in Hawaii, especially towards Kauai and in Alaska. Some governmental scandals in Western Canada. Some economic downturn in California and Washington and Oregon. It looks like even extending into a little bit into Nevada. there'll be arguments or fights up through this entire belt here, um, especially misrepresentation, especially through Arizona and um, up through central Canada. And finally, we have a Mercury line running up through pretty much right close to um, Niagara Falls, but not quite on it. This is more the Venus line is more connected with that. It's more connected with the border crossing issue. But there are some, we're not getting the whole truth about that border incident. I don't want to obsess about that border incident, but we're not getting the whole truth about that because we have a Mars Mercury line conjoining up here. Um, there's also a Venus line running through uh, the Virgin Islands, Bahamas, through Cuba, and down through Panama and into Western Chile, Peru, and also a Rahu line running into Venezuela. So Venezuela may actually be primed for some kind of internal rebellion or revolt. Argentina has already had that happen. If so, Argentina is between this Rahu and Jupiter line, so essentially that represents the unhappiness those governments are feeling. Mars and Sun, there's some potential for violence in eastern Brazil from this line. And there's a Saturn line heading close to England, not quite there yet, but again, there's been some kind of economic downturn um, projected for that, for England, and also West Africa. And finally, we have Venus Rahu going through the Netherlands, or not the Netherlands, it's more, oh, yeah, it is the Netherlands, I'm sorry. So that explains why we had that disruption in government there. Also heading through uh, Algeria, into Niger, and down into Rhodesia and South Africa. There are Jupiter lines heading through Libya, down into close to Sudan, and next to Egypt. There are some Sun Mars lines running through, running close to Israel. So this conflict is not over. You know, I know there's been a temporary ceasefire, which is terrific, but let's see if we can move towards a permanent ceasefire. Um, and Saudi Arabia, uh, Qatar, Qatar, or Qatar, as some people pronounce it. I've always heard it's supposed to be pronounced Qatar. Uh, and there's a Saturn line running through Iran. So Iran's kind of like boxed in. Iran and Iraq are kind of like boxed in. And there's a Mercury line running through Ukraine. So we're not getting the full story on what's happening in the Ukraine right now. And I think it's mainly because we're focused on Israel. But basically, hopefully there'll be a ceasefire in uh, in Israel soon. Um, I'm not really for. I don't know enough about the conflict to come down on either side. If I'm going to be honest about it, I'm not an expert on Israel by any stretch of the imagination or on Palestine. Um, but I don't like to see people getting killed, period. And I don't like to see people getting kidnapped, period. Okay. Or attacked. Okay. So that's sort of like where I draw my line. And let's see now. Saturn's moving into, so there could be an economic slowdown in the Middle East around Iran, Iraq, Syria, maybe a little bit of Turkey involved. Some earthquake activity possible around this region of Turkey again, because of the Mars line. And finally, we have a Mercury line. So we are getting some misinformation or some bad information. I won't call it misinformation because that has political connotations, or disinformation has some bad information out of Iran and also out of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Um, and Mercury is hitting India, but this involves, I would say, some minor political squabbles on the west coast of India. Uh, Not really touching it. Uh, Rahu and is going through China, Vietnam, and Venus is over there. So there's some panic or some concern. Venus is going through Cambodia down to um, Indonesia, and so there's some concern about economic future out there. There's maybe even a little bit of panic. Jupiter and Moon are going through Western, Eastern China, excuse me, and through the Philippines, and next to Borneo, and next to Australia, Western Australia. Australia, I think, is in shutdown again. I think I heard. Uh, so so that would explain the Saturn line over here and the Mars Sun line over here, where the government, is essentially taking control again. And there's a Mercury line going through New Zealand. New Zealand's in kind of rough shape economically, as far as I understand it right now, and politically. So they're probably going to be facing a change in administrations relatively soon. So that's it for this week. I love you all. Please stay healthy. Please stay safe. Um, the best is yet to come. Don't worry. We'll make it through this. We made it through so many things. The country is really not in crisis. I think a lot of people would like you to believe that, so they can scare you um, and and keep you quiet no matter what side you're on. But we're really not. This is um, we're seeing what I would call amplifications of problems or undercurrents, which were always there, which are hitting kind of boiling points because they've been ignored for so long. So just everything changes. Okay. So don't worry about change. Embrace change, embrace new ideas. Peace. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching, and namaste.